Hi everyone, it's Kim. Thanks for joining me. With the summer heat bearing down upon us, I decided the coolest place to be was in front of my little desk fan at my craft desk and making some flowers. But before I did that, I wanted to play with this new stencil from Altenew called Strong Oak. It is absolutely beautiful. And because fall is my favorite time of the year, I decided to do it in fall colors. So you can see how large this oak tree is. Here is the stencil. And there's 6 stencils, 3 for the tree, 3 for the trunk. And my piece of paper is 5.5 by 8.5. So that gives you some idea of how large this is. And so you might be like, well, that's a really big tree. What am I going to do with it? Well, at Creativation, we saw this, and the person who created the cards from this, I thought had a great idea. So they stenciled the tree out, and then you can just cut this in half and create 2 A2 size cards. So there's our tree, if it was together as one, and now I have 2 separate cards. So now you can see it in green tones or more orangey yellow fall tones. Whatever color you want to make your tree, but I just thought it was so beautiful. And then for the For You and Thanks, I'll show you where I got those as well. Now, at Creativation, we only saw the stencil, but we were told there was a die coming, which is now out, if you want to cut the tree out. So you can stencil it and then use the die here to cut it out. This is my little mask that I cut out. And so now I can do whatever I want with just this huge, beautiful oak tree. So if I want to just use the whole thing, this is a 6 by 6 piece of cardstock, just so you can kind of see how that fits on there. And when you cut it out, there is this little white line that goes around the whole entire tree in the trunk. I am not a big fan of the little white line, so I went back and just colored in the edges real quickly with whatever color was surrounding that area. So I left this open, but I'll go back with some brown ink that I used for the trunk and then just put a little of that in there and cover up that white line. Super easy to do, but I left it so that you could just see that there is a little white line around the entire image when you die cut it out. Now, in addition to the die for the tree, which is obviously a huge die, we also have some words and the background dies to coordinate with those sentiments. So if we go back to our A2 size cards, Thanks and For You both come out of this set. For Thanks, I did use the background die, the shadow die. And for You, I decided I had room. I'm just going to put the die and cut on the front of the card base and then just lined it with some green paper and then, put some blue cardstock on the back of that before I attach it to my card base. So kind of a little different way to cut into my card base rather than just gluing something on top of it. But I know I'll be using this gorgeous tree for the fall. I think it's beautiful. It was easy to stencil, but it is very, very striking. And if you are into wanting to cut the tree out, we're able to do that with the die now. So then I was on to some flowers, and this is the first one I want to show you. This is from J.C. Gaspar, and you might recall he is the designer of the Jack of All Trades die series or die collection for Spellbinders, the playing cards. But he also has this beautiful floral die for Altenew. This is called Sweet Nasturtium. So we have kind of like a pansy flower and then those delicious looking macaroons and then some leaves to go with it. Easy to put this together. Beautiful, beautiful dies. And on all the flower cards I'm going to show you today, you can really use them for any occasion. I was just kind of pulling out sentiments that I maybe already had made, but there's no limit. You can have these ready to go without a sentiment and then add it when you have a need for a card. So Hello Sweet Friend is from one of Spellbinder's Better Press plates. I couldn't tell you what that is because I just made a bunch of them and now I'm putting it on. The other thing I wanted to do is I have all these new dies, but I have some favorites that I love, especially for the background. So for this one, you can see it's kind of embossed into the paper, and that is using an older Pink Fresh die. slim diagonal stitch plaid. So it doesn't really cut these lines out, but it embosses them into my paper just to give a little interest to that background. So again, I'm really trying to think, pull out some of your dies from your stash and use it with all of these new dies that are coming out. And I kind of did that with this one. So these are some dies from Birch Press Design. Some of them I think are a little newer and some of them are a little older. I started with the Evening Moth, and those kind of just go into with the colors of the paper. They don't stand out as much as maybe I should have used some different colors, but it's all a very soft, I think, beautiful color. So it's called Evening Moths. Now, personally, I have never seen a moth this beautiful. Mine that I see flying around are all those brown ones. But why not make a beautiful one? And then the center flower is from the Pimpernel Contour Layers. So I have the flower and the leaf, and I've used a couple leaves with that flower. And then this background piece is just, again, an old one that I had in my stash from Birch Press. This is called Cora. And there's 3 different separate dies that layer up to make that background piece. So again, if you've got some dies, and I wouldn't have had to use a Birch Press one, but since I had that, I thought I'll use that kind of as the base for my flower. And for you there, since I had the Altenew tree, the big oak tree die, I just decided, hey, I can use that. Then I have to run around and leave my cool fan to find something else. Now, when we think of moths, I think of them around a light at night. So I thought, let me make another one, and maybe this is a little more accurate of what a fly's life or what a moth's life is. So I have those lights from Pear Blossom Press, and I thought I'm going to make myself a little light outside my front door, and that will attract my little moths. So that's what I've done with this. The moths are from Birch Press. The door is a new die from Altenew. And this is one of those where I don't necessarily think, oh, I know what I'm going to do with this. But it's just a good basic die. So when I need a door, I have a variety of doors here. And you can check out all the different pieces. The one thing I do love is they have this layering guide. So they show you how to put them together. And then if you come up with something on your own, that works too. One little thing I did this door here, and it has this die that cuts all these little pieces out. And I was like, okay, well, now I got to try to get them all lined up. After the fact, I thought, okay, here's an easier way to do that. Here is the piece, the fallout piece. So when I die cut this out, I get this outer rectangle and these 3 center rectangles, and they're all pretty thin pieces. So to help me keep those in line, I could put this outer one down. I didn't have a problem with that. But then for the inner ones, to line those up easily, then I just took my waste or throwaway piece and used that as a template, and then glued in those tiny little thin rectangles. And that made life so much easier than trying to keep everything straight and level across the top and the bottom. So if you have the throwaway piece, hang on to that, and then that'll make it easier. These were pretty easy because the glass opening there was a great guide for that. And then for my light, I went and got out Tim's Vault Industrial die set for this light. This is one of his last releases, but it was a perfect size for my light pole, and I just cut a little strip and set that light bulb on top, and then just put in that light underneath. Now, I left this open to show you on the back what I did, because I know in the previous video I did with all of these lights, I shared how if I want to be able to get in there and change the battery, I did some kind of an opening. So this one I thought, well, I don't have to have the whole card open. I just folded it. And then I had to lay this down here where I wanted it. I couldn't flip it over this time, or the light wouldn't work very well. Put double-sided tape on the back side here. So after I had my light where I wanted it, it's facing front, the face down. Then I could put my back flap over, press real hard, and pick that light up, and now it's in position. And then I could put, again, glue dots if I want to be able to access it. I also thought, next time maybe I could kind of see where this is and then cut a smaller door in this back piece. So just kind of how much time and effort you want to put into it if you're worried about accessing that battery. But to me, this is a more realistic scene with how the moths are attracted to the lights. And I continued on with that Pimpernel. Let me get that die. Pimpernel, if I'm saying that right, contour layers. So this flower, super simple card. 2 flowers, 3 leaves, and then thanks. And I believe thanks is again from that Altenew set, just because it was sitting there on my desk. Super simple. And for the background of this one, I wanted to use that Spellbinder's molded frame. This is a really simple card. There's not a lot to it. So I thought I'm going to use this molded frame because I can use it, either way, whether the center is debossed or embossed. And then just kind of use that as the frame around my flowers. So again, super simple card. I could have left thanks off. And then when I need something for whatever occasion, then I can just die cut and glue on my sentiment and I am good to go, or stamp on a sentiment and I am good to go. Another one where I just made the flowers and I can use it for anything. This one is again from Birch Press. The flowers are called Delicate Floral Buds. So I just made a bunch of them and then combined a variety of them. I needed a vase, so I went back to my stash and got Simon Hurley ceramic vases from Spellbinders. I think this might be the only vase die that I have. I'm not sure. So I always have it handy because it's a good size and it pretty much handles all of my vase needs for flowers. And this time I thought, I always have a need, unfortunately, for sympathy cards. And I found this wonderful stamp set from Penny Black that has some very nice sentiments, but are a little different from what I've normally seen. So I thought this would be an ideal card for a sympathy card. Really, any of the flower cards probably would work for sympathy cards, depending on the colors. And so I could just stamp that on there. This would also be a good one if you wanted to say put deepest sympathy, if you have a die cut for that, and then put any of these on the inside of your card. But I just thought they were some really nice and different sentiments to use. And then on to another flower card. I guess I was just sitting there cutting those flowers out like crazy. So I love this one. This is called Wispy Blooms Contour Layers, again, Birch Press. Super simple to cut out, very, very simple to put together. And then the leaves are the rose leaves contour layers again. Certainly not a rose, but I don't think anybody that I would give this to would say, oh, well, that's the wrong kind of leaf for that flower. So for me, this is going to be an all-purpose leaf. And then I love this, like a negative die. This is called Film Drip. So there's 2 of these from All and Create. There is the vertical one, and then there's another one that's a horizontal one. Not that you can't turn this and use it horizontally, but the little holes for the horizontal one are on this side. So whichever one you want to use works. But I just absolutely love like a negative look. So I was very, very happy with how this one came out. So in a short amount of time, really, I was able to create a bunch of floral cards that I can use for a number of different occasions and just make them up, really, and not worry about putting a sentiment on them until I need them. But that kept me in front of the fan for a while, which was very, very nice. And of course, I got the feeling of fall in with that beautiful stencil from Altenew. So if you are sweating it out there and have the opportunity to sit in front of a fan and just play, I hope you do. And I hope this gives you some inspiration. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in a future video.